Welcome to AI Podcast. Today we'll discuss the most important current affairs from the Hindu 3 June 2026 edition with detailed analysis for UPSC aspirants. Your comments and feedback help us improve and create better content for aspirants every day. Thank you for supporting AI Podcast. Welcome to the deep dive. So today we are taking a massive zoom-in approach. We're going to start at the macro level with India's international borders and defense technologies, and then transition into how climate and the environment are just completely reshaping the domestic economy. And finally, zoom all the way down to the microscopic level to see how, well, urban pollution is actually affecting human DNA and unborn children.
Yeah, it's quite the journey today. And look, if you're an aspirant studying these topics, connecting the dots between geopolitics, economics, and biology, that's the true key to understanding current affairs. You can't just isolate them.
Exactly. So let's start out at the frontiers of security, like the actual physical territorial borders. We've got Nepal and China on the agenda.
Right, where diplomacy and geography actually intersect.
Yeah, right. And with Nepal, I know there's been some tension, and India recently completely rejected third-party mediation, specifically involving the UK and China.
Yeah, they shut that down firmly. The thing is, about 98% of the boundary with Nepal is already formally demarcated.
Out of 98%?
Exactly. So what we're looking at are really localized disputes. The government's stance is that we already have bilateral mechanisms in place to map any encroachments in, the no man's land. We don't need outsiders stepping in.
Got it. But then you look at China, and that is a totally different story. We have this ongoing special representatives dialogue, and China is pushing for an early harvest in the Sikkim sector.
Yes, an early harvest basically means a quick localized settlement.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Why not just settle the Sikkim sector if it's, ripe for an agreement? Isn't bagging a small win and getting some actual progress better than a decades-long stalemate?
Well, see, that's exactly the strategic trap. You have to look at the map. The dispute in Sikkim centers on where the border actually begins. China claims the border starts at Mount Gitmochi, whereas India and Bhutan say it's further north at Batangla.
Okay, so just one mountain. Why is that such a big deal?
Because accepting China's view would give their military a direct, elevated view of the Siliguri corridor.
Oh, wow. The chicken's neck.
Exactly. It's incredibly vulnerable. And to make matters worse, China has already constructed Pangda village, specifically to bypass the site of the 2017 Doklam standoff.
Jeez, so they're just creating facts on the ground.
Right. And if India accepts this early harvest, they lose massive strategic leverage. The 2005 agreement actually explicitly requires a package settlement for the whole border, not this piecemeal demarcation.
That makes total sense. And honestly, this vulnerability at our physical borders directly drives our need for, well, strategic autonomy and defense.
Absolutely. You can't secure a border if you're relying on rivals for the tech to guard it.
Yeah, and we did see some progress there with the Rudram-II. The DRDO and the IAF successfully test-fired it, which is an indigenous air-to-surface missile.
Right, which is a great milestone. But, the hardware is only part of it. The real issue is the tech inside.
The semiconductors.
Yeah.
Which brings up this incredibly fascinating report from Niti Aayog's Frontier Tech Hub. It basically says our current ecosystem just cannot meet domestic demand for chips. They're saying the government needs to invest $45 to $60 billion over 10 years.
It's a massive number, but it's necessary.
But here's where it gets really interesting regarding the chips. Why is Niti Aayog telling us to focus on mature nodes instead of racing to build the most advanced frontier chips? Shouldn't we be aiming for the absolute top?
Well, it sounds counterintuitive, right? But the frontier chips run smartphones and high-end AI. The mature nodes, though, those run our telecom, our power grids, our electric vehicles, and our military hardware.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we need import substitution for the things that actually keep the country running. By focusing on mature nodes and advanced packaging, we reduce our reliance on adversaries for critical infrastructure.
It's like we're building a massive state-of-the-art fortress, but we're importing the locks for the doors from our main rival.
That is a perfect way to put it. And, we are seeing that exact same vulnerability in EV supply chains.
Oh, yeah, the batteries. We are electrifying so fast, but we're creating this totally new strategic liability.
Exactly. Just in 2025, India imported 7,987 megawatt-hours of lithium-ion batteries, and a massive chunk of that global manufacturing relies on the Chinese ecosystem.
So what's the fix? Are we just stuck?
Well, the industry is pushing a China Plus One strategy, but more importantly, exploring emerging chemistries like sodium-ion batteries. It acts as a necessary hedge so we aren't completely dependent on one supplier.
Right, so we're trying to achieve all this autonomy in microchips and batteries. But meanwhile, we are shockingly dependent on foreign tools to monitor our own climate.
Yeah, the Mega Science Vision 2035 report highlights this perfectly. It is a massive deficit in our climate research.
Yeah, I was reading this. We are literally losing our ability to build climate monitoring instruments because of like a procurement rule.
Unfortunately, yes, it's the government e-marketplace, or GEM-M portal. The lowest bidder rule basically forces scientists to buy substandard, uncalibrated equipment.
So what does this all mean? If our scientists are forced to buy the cheapest possible weather instruments because of procurement rules, are we basically flying blind into a climate crisis that is already happening?
We are. And we're already seeing the consequences of lacking accurate predictive models. For instance, the IMD just missed its forecast for the Kerala monsoon onset.
Right. They had to revise it to June 4th because of the El Nino, right?
Exactly, and that's their first major miss since 2015.
And a missed monsoon forecast isn't just an inconvenience, it hits the rural economy hard.
It's devastating. Look at the dairy sector. The extreme heat stress is tanking output. There's a specific anecdote in the sources about a dairy farmer, Niraj Faradwaj.
Yeah, his cow delivered a premature calf, right?
Mm.
A tiny, almost hairless calf.
Yes, due to extreme heat stress. And overall, we're looking at a 30% drop in dairy yields because of this heat. The animals just can't cope.
Man, that's rough. And because the climate is changing so drastically, India is having to rapidly reorganize its entire domestic landscape, like how we manage urban land to deal with migration.
Right, which brings us to land pooling and urbanization.
Yeah, the 2013 Land Acquisition Act is apparently just way too expensive and slow. So states are shifting to these town planning or TP schemes. I think they call it the Gujarat model.
Yeah, the Gujarat model. Essentially, instead of forced acquisition, landowners voluntarily pool 25 to 40% of their land for infrastructure.
Think of land pooling like a neighborhood potluck. Instead of the government just seizing your kitchen, everyone chips in a few ingredients and you all share a massive feast that makes everyone's property more valuable.
Exactly. You give up some land for roads and sewers, but the smaller plot you get back is fully serviced and worth significantly more.
But then, looking at the tribal forests in Chhattisgarh, things aren't quite as harmonious. They set up a task force to fast-track the Forest Rights Act and PISA, the Panchayat's extension to scheduled areas.
Yes, and we have to report on this neutrally because it's a very heated issue. The government claims this task force will speed up implementation.
Right, but if land pooling is a voluntary potluck, activists are arguing that this PISA task force is basically a VIP list that bypasses the actual village residents. How exactly does this new structure bypass the traditional Gram Sabha?
Well, the opposition and activists argue that creating this state-level task force creates a parallel structure. They're concerned it takes the decision-making power away from the local Gram Sabhas and institutionalizes outfits linked to the Sangh Parivar, like the JSM and ABVKA.
Interesting. So it's a tension between administrative speed and local democratic power.
Very much so. And while all this reorganization is happening, the actual yardstick we use to measure the economy is changing too.
Oh, right. The DPIT is phasing out the wholesale price index, the WPI, by June 15th.
Correct. They're replacing it with the Producer Price Index, or PPI.
And this is to align with IMF best practices, right? To better track output and input costs?
Exactly. The WPI was just too broad. The PPI actually lets economists see how raw material costs translate into the final price of manufactured goods. It's a much more accurate tool for tracking inflation.
Okay, so we've zoomed from international borders to urban infrastructure, and now we are going to zoom into the most intimate borders of all, like the structure of the family.
Yes, there was a major Supreme Court ruling regarding the rights of married daughters.
Right. They struck down a 2019 order about a fair price shop, basically ruling that denying compassionate appointment to a married daughter is rooted in a gender-based stereotype.
Exactly. The court essentially said that marriage does not magically sever a daughter's ties or responsibilities to her natal family. It's a massive reframing of family rights.
It really is. And speaking of intimate boundaries being crossed, this next story is just wild. The biological barrier of the human placenta.
Ah, yes. The ICMR AIM study on urban air pollution. This is groundbreaking research.
Yeah. So we always think of air pollution as a lung problem or an asthma trigger, right?
Yeah.
But this study found that fine particulate matter, PM2.5, actually crosses the placental barrier.
It does. It breaches the placenta, triggers inflammation, and literally shuts down a vital protein called IGF-BP3.
Wait, what does that protein do?
It's essential for fetal growth. So by shutting it down, the pollution is actively causing epigenetic changes.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. The idea that urban air is crossing the placenta and literally flipping genetic switches off in a fetus. Doesn't this completely reframe air pollution from just an environmental issue to an immediate generational medical crisis?
Absolutely. It demands a total shift in how we view public health. The study compared highly polluted Delhi to Deoghar, a low-pollution city, and the results were staggering.
Yeah, I saw that. PM 2.5 caused massive risks of low birth weight and even preeclampsia.
Right. It's affecting the next generation before they're even born.
Wow. Okay, let me try to summarize the incredible scale of this deep dive because we've covered so much ground today. It's a lot to take in, for sure.
We started at the high altitudes of the India-China border and the strategic depths of semiconductor manufacturing and went all the way down to the microscopic barrier of the human placenta. It's all connected.
It really is. And, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought on that connection.
Let's hear it.
We talked earlier about how India is struggling to build and procure the scientific instruments needed to track climate change, right? All due to bureaucratic red tape and the lowest bidder rule.
Yeah, the gem portal issue.
Right. Well, at the exact same time, invisible PM 2.5 particles are rewriting the biology of the next generation. So the question is, if we don't fix our macro-level systems, our procurement, our tech autonomy, and our urban planning, how can we possibly protect the micro-level biology of our citizens?
Wow. That is a brilliant point to end on. You really can't separate the macro from the micro. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and we'll catch you next time.